tonight's big stories. The LTFRB gives unconsolidated jeepneys and UV Express until January 31st of 2024 to operate as the December 31st deadline for them to join cooperatives nears. Now, what does this new order actually mean?
Worried about artificial intelligence taking over your job? Well, you're not alone. A House lawmaker has filed a bill seeking to regulate the technology. But the question is, are jobs really at risk with AI?
And what's in the wish list for the government of British businessmen here in the Philippines? British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines Executive Director Chris Nelson tells us later in the show.
Welcome to the show. I'm Dani Laurel.
I'm Riza Diaz.
And I'm Angela Lagunzad.
Now we're starting the show with news from the transport sector. The LTFRB has allowed non-consolidated PUVs to ply select routes until January 31st, 2024. Now, under its Memorandum Circular Number 2023-052, the LTFRB stated that individual operators in routes without consolidated transport service entities shall be allowed to operate until January 31st. This is so as, quote, not to hamper the operation of public transportation routes without consolidated TSEs. Now, during the one-month period, however, the LTFRB and its regional offices shall still be issuing show-cause orders for those that failed to consolidate in compliance with the Public Service Act.
Now, based on data from the LTFRB, over 31,000 traditional jeepneys in Metro Manila have yet to be consolidated as part of the PUV modernization program. Likewise, 66% of jeepneys were not consolidated in Calabarzon and 63% in Zamboanga Peninsula. According to the Office of Transportation Cooperatives, only over 60 cooperatives have been formed from January to November. But for this month alone, they have received more than 90 applications and inquiries from various groups. Recall that transport officials and even President Bongbong Marcos have made it clear that there will be no extension for the December 31st, 2023 deadline.
December 31, no? Very firm yung deadline natin. Pero dito sa opisina ng Office ng Transportation Cooperatives, tuloy-tuloy ang pagpunta ng mga individual, ng mga asosasyon, pati yung mga grupo. Tuloy-tuloy sila na either nagtatanong or bubuo or sumama sa mga kooperatiba para sumama nga eventually sa consolidation. Ang daming pupunta doon at hinihikayat pa namin sila na sumama at umabot sa deadline.
So ito na nga, Riza, we were discussing with Marvel Buena of Manibela just a couple of days ago when this news didn't come out yet. He was really fervently hoping that it would not happen, but the consolidation deadline would at least pass or give them more time. Now I think they're asking for this. This is a good step forward, but he's asking siguro one more year. They need to rethink whether or not consolidation needs to happen just for the modernization of PUVs. Diba?
Exactly.
You know, the memo though is a little tricky to be interpreted or to be just read as that, because it says there, for those who fail to comply with the December 31st deadline, they shall no longer be allowed to organize into a
Consolidation.
Yes.
Yeah.
After a month.
They can't join.
So, what's the extension for?
Exactly.
In a way.
Yeah, so basically, what they're saying is you still need to consolidate by the end of the year.
So you have more or less 2 days.
Yes.
And then they said these government agencies that are going to be part of that, that group that will receive their applications will be on like a no holiday. They will extend their working hours. So yun. So
But then the other people that do not want to be part of a cooperative can continue to use their vehicles for one more month.
Yun lang until January.
Yun lang yun. But
Kasi
nevertheless, they have not dropped the consolidation issue. So after that, dapat wala na sila
wala na
lisensya.
talaga kasi that's the essence of the law. But yun nga, the modernization program, but yun nga, a lot of people are, while we understand the plight of our jeepney drivers, no, yung problema nila about this modernization act, there's this argument naman din on the other side of the fence, those who complied with the consolidation.
Correct.
Sabi nila,
Correct.
lagi na lang
We did
ganito,
it na.
'di ba?
Oo.
Lagi na lang ganito na pag pagbibigyan yung hiling ng kabila, paano naman kami, 'di ba? So, sabi nila the government should meet halfway with both, 'di ba, na nakapag-comply and not, but strictly, what is halfway at this point?
I think the government has already made it easier for them to be able to comply with the consolidation. Diba? The process in itself was actually made easier. And come to think of it, this has been something that has been postponed, delayed for several years. 2017 pa to.
And I think up to this day, sila Balbuena, if
Yes.
I'm correct, no? Still
Manibela.
waiting for the temporary restraining order from Supreme Court, but they have already issued.
They've said, I think, no more.
No more,
No
diba?
TRO.
No
Oo,
TRO.
just
But-
an extension, just
an
to see. And I think for them, that's already a good sign that, okay, there's some leeway to continue negotiations. Because what they want, they're not against the modernization.
Parang buying
They're happy
time
to
yung
modernize.
nangyayari.
Right.
But they want to modernize on their own. They don't understand, why do I need to join a cooperative?
Cooperative.
Why am I forced to get a loan from the government?
Exactly.
If I can, hulug-hulugan naman my own
Because we have to
jeepney,
take note that if you join a consolidation,
cooperative.
the loan that you get from the bank will directly go through where you will purchase.
Oo,
the-
kaya nga. So maraming
the
nagsasabi, that's
transportation, no?
very difficult, mabigat din yun.
Although there's parang sinasabi nila subsidy from the government, it's only 100 to 200,000.
Okay.
That will not really cover the whole 2.8 billion.
Let's just also remind everybody that in the memorandum, the LTFRB said it may also issue special permits to operate on routes without consolidated PUVs. Yun na nga yun. But the special permits to ply certain routes may also be issued and will be valid for 3 months.
For
after
those
January.
who
After
were able to
January.
consolidate.
And only for those who were
Ayan na nga.
yes.
Okay.
Yun eh.
So 3 months for those that consolidated, 1 month for those that don't have it. And they can't have it anymore.
Here's to hoping that finally, what the commuters deserve is a system that's safe, di ba, for
Consistent
them.
public
Correct.
transportation.
Yun yung and please, yung di ba, the toll on the environment habang pinapatagal natin to is, is piling up. So hopefully this gets moving.
Exactly. So ito na yung resulta, no? Pero ang tanong dyan, how do transport groups feel about this move by the LTFRB? So let's bring in mobile journalist Julie Baiza for the details. Julie, what do you have for us?
Angela, Transport Group Manibela expressed its gratitude for the extension, but the group is also hoping that it could go beyond January 31, 2024.
Parang kami magkaroon ng konting pag-asa, pero sana extend na rin nila ng 1 taon para mapag-aralang muli itong bakit kinakailangan pa ng consolidation dito sa PUBMP na marami naman ang nakapag-modernize nang hindi kinakailangan mag-consolidate.
Now, adding to the good news for transport groups, the Supreme Court has ordered the Transportation Department and the LTFRB to comment on the petition against the PUV consolidation deadline on December 31. Transport agencies were ordered to personally file with the SC their comments within 10 days. The High Court, however, did not grant the TRO to halt the implementation of the PUV consolidation. Nonetheless, some drivers are still hopeful that the SC will support the request of the Piston Group to dismiss the Consolidation and Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program.
Kasi napakalabo po, sir. Pakalabo po, sobrang labo po ng nilalaban. Yung pinapaliwanag nila sa amin na wala naman talagang patutunguhan. Ang nangyayari po, gusto nilang kunin yung linya namin. Pangalawa, yung jeep, bibigyan nila sa amin 2.4. Baka patay na ako, anak ko, mabang nga po lang, di pa bayad yung mga, diba? Itong jeep ko po, pinundar ko po ito 7 taon.
Angela, in the latest statement by DOTR Secretary Jaime Bautista, the December 31 consolidation deadline will remain in effect. He added that the initiative has gained the support of majority of our PUV operators, as around 70% of them have already taken part in the consolidation process. Bautista also remained firm on the Marcos Jr. administration's goal of easing the plight of commuters by ensuring cleaner and safer means of public transportation for the riding public. Angela?
Thank you so much, mobile journalist Julie Baiza.
Now after the break, The British Chamber of Commerce Philippines has welcomed the signing of Executive Order 50 that extends the application of reduced tariff rates on rice, corn, and meat products. BCCP Executive Director Chris Nelson will join us later to discuss this and more when The Big Story returns. Stay with us.
Okay.
My wife is from here, so.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News.
The Marcos administration is gunning for a stronger Philippine economy in 2024, which we will be welcoming in just a few days. British businesses here in the country have meanwhile laid out their wish list for doing business in the country. Here to break those down for us, we have with us on the program Christopher Nelson, Executive Director and the Trustee at the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. Welcome to The Big Story, Chris.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite. Nice
All
to
right,
be here.
lots of things to be looking at. Okay, let's kick off with the tariff extension situation. Okay, so this is actually a tariff, not tariff extension. Extension of not lowering, extension of lowered tariffs, particularly on specific things. You've got rice, corn, and meat, and these are staples that we need. And the basic, rationale for that is there's El Nino next year. We might not have enough to supply our own needs locally, and so we need more of these imports to happen. A lot of agri groups are, of course, against this, saying that's going to definitely hamper their production and the prices of goods. Give us your idea coming from the British side.
So look, we're focused on the pork. We've actually seen pork supply from the UK grow. It's now the second largest market after China. Is the Philippines.
The Philippines is the second largest market in Asia for
after
British
China.
pork. Okay.
And we have to understand here is that the local pork supply has actually been impacted by the African swine flu. Nobody has a clear idea. Unfortunately, it still remains. There's still outbreaks. The impact on obviously the local herds has been significant, and that's why pork prices went up. That's why the tariffs were initially lowered, starting, I believe, in 21.
Yeah.
And then it was extended again last year, and now it's been extended again under Executive Order 50 until the 31st of December of 2024. Now, from our perspective, this is clearly a help in terms of food supply, because if you didn't do that, you would have inflation. And inflation is a big factor, not only in the Philippines, but it's been a big factor across the rest of the US, UK, which is why interest rates in the Philippines are at 6.5, because of the concern on inflation. So I think it's a necessary move in terms of the local sector, because the supply is not there. And if you didn't have that, then actually prices would go up. And it was also noted in the position paper of the Philippine meat importers, PAMPI. So we're strong believers in that. And I think also coming on to that, though, we're also strong supporters of the Anti-Agricultural Smuggling Act to help support the local, because obviously smuggling will only actually distort the market and that's a benefit, and we want to see resilience there. So I think this is actually a good for the country, and it will help on supply and inflation.
But just to no, this is an extension of something that's been going on for so many years that is supposed to have been a band-aid solution that seems to now be a long-standing lower tariff. Why is there no other way, like a trade agreement instead, that will keep these types of tariffs?
Well,
that
that's
would
a
be
good question. There are
less, shaky for everyone.
Well, obviously, every year we have to have the discussions. So first of all, if you look at trade agreements, they're obviously, so if you look at the UK, for example, we rolled out this year a new trading relationship with the Philippines. It's called the Developing Countries Trading Scheme, DCTS, because I'm sure you're aware we voted to leave the European Union in 2016, known as Brexit. Since then, we rolled on actually the current trading arrangement with Europe, which is called GSP+. So now we have DCTS, which actually has reduced a number of tariffs or duties for goods from the Philippines to the UK. So we're hoping that's going to improve things, and also reducing administration. So coming back to your point, yes, we'd like to see actually tariffs even maybe go lower, or how we can develop. Because what we've tried to look at is build long-term relations. So for example, we took the two of the largest meat importers, that's Atkins and Ramcar. They went to the Great Yorkshire Show, which is one of the largest meat shows in the UK. And what we're looking here is to develop long-term relations. Yes, there's not a short term, it's now becoming obviously over a long period because of African swine flu. And by the way, there's a shortage of pork worldwide.
Right.
And there's also distortions in trade, which are of course impacted because of the Ukraine-Russian conflict, et cetera, et cetera. So I think all of those factors, if you look at the British Chamber, what we've been trying to achieve is long-term relations, and to actually establish that. And obviously the benefit we see of British pork is it's very traceable, high quality, and it's a good opportunity for both sides.
Chris, how would you describe the relationship of the Philippines and UK when it comes to trade relations? You mentioned the DCTS. Would you say there's mutual benefits? And what would be, some perhaps points of improvement that you would want to see in the next coming year?
So trade between the two countries is at an all-time high, 2.9 billion pounds, and it's almost equal both ways.
Okay.
And this is the 77th year, if I hope I'm correct, of British diplomatic relations, of UK's relations with the Philippines. And as you probably know, President Marcos has close ties with the UK. So those relations, I think, are at the strongest. In terms of trying to accelerate more business, it's part of our wish list. Of course, we're strong supporters of the reduction in anti-red tape or bureaucracy.
Exactly.
We'd like to see companies settle here. We do a lot of work with SMEs and MSMEs, and therefore we want to speed up that process. We're strong also supporters of infrastructure spending, particularly digitalization. I think we all would like to see the support of that, and that will also help in terms of process. And then one of the things I'd just like to add on as well, one of the acts that we believe is also mentioned as a priority is also cybersecurity, because we see obviously more in those areas. So British companies are interested in the Philippines. I'd just like to say that the signing of RCEP, which is the regional trade agreement, which was finally ratified, is a key importance.
Okay.
Because when we want companies to come to the Philippines, yes, it's important, there's 120 million people, a lot of talent. It's also to get access then, once they establish, to the rest of Southeast Asia. So signing RCEP, which obviously was actually driven, of course, by the Department of Trade and Industry, was an important development. So to come back on wish list, more investment infrastructure, obviously, particularly on the digital side. And then also, finally, I have to say, also allowing companies to invest directly. We've seen 100% in renewable energy. We'd like to see some of those economic barriers which are enshrined. Of course, that's in the charter. It's the negative investment list. We'd like to see further opening of the Philippine economy. Because the final point I want to say here is the Philippines has got great opportunities, very talented people, but at the same time you're competing with a lot of other countries.
With much cheaper energy.
That's also a challenge.
That is a challenge.
So we have to push as the British Chamber to companies back in the UK why they should be coming to the Philippines. And therefore we want to constantly push. And we've seen obviously movements on the legislative side, particularly under the previous administration, under President Duterte, Public Service Act, Foreign Investment Act, Retail Trade Act. And now under President Marcos, we see obviously a push to obviously also hopefully lower further that. And that's very encouraging.
Historically, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Historically, which sectors are the British people interested in terms of FDIs? Because it's very clear that Japanese love the manufacturing, semiconductor sector. You've got Americans bringing in, they're outsourcing here in the Philippines. Which ones are the
So
British
the
looking
British
at?
companies have had different areas. I mean, obviously, we're also involved in outsourcing here. Obviously, companies have set up. At the same time, we have strong areas in renewable energy. We're strong in engineering, in projects. We're also actually very keen. Companies have always expressed a strong interest in food and drink. Because the
Generally.
Philippines is 120 people. You're actually a very young demographics. And that's very attractive to companies. And also the other side I'd say is probably on training, because the UK has very high training. It would like to see how it could expand in that area.
All right, you mentioned earlier ease of doing business. I would like to elaborate on that. Could you
Sure.
tell us specific red tape issues that the business currently face?
I think there
Or
are
improvements, if you've seen.
Well, okay. So here, what I'd say. I think first of all, have I seen improvement? I've lived in this country for 20 years, and I would say my number one improvement, as an example, is my driving license, which is now 10 years.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's so much easier to
Is that red
get
tape or an extension?
No, because it's also now you can get it in a local office,
Right, in
and
the
it's
malls
done in
even.
less
The
than an
malls.
hour.
Yeah.
So all
Okay.
credit.
Satellite
That's
offices,
my
yeah.
personal experience, and I think
Okay.
that is actually a big improvement
Okay.
compared to it used to be 3 years, etc., etc. Look, companies. I think the first thing you've got to look also at your multi-agencies involvement. You also have the fact that here you have a national government. You also have a lot of LGUs.
Correct.
So you have LGU requirements as well as national requirements. What companies want to do is to actually have that speed. So I think some of the things that are being done now, like ease of paying online,
Oh, that's right.
and also the process in general. So it's really setting up businesses and trying to shorten. I think when you have multiple agencies involved, right? I mean, clearancing of goods, etc., where you have multiple agencies involved. Even getting samples through sometimes can be a challenge. So we embrace this. One of our people attended actually with now I think it's Secretary Perez, who's now heading up the anti-red tape. So we are endorsed of that. I think the way it moves forward is if you can really focus on certain key areas and move that forward. As I said, my one example is the driving license, because I think that's handled by one agency.
The LTO.
LTO.
And it worked, so congrats.
So we were reporting yesterday about the migrant workers and how we actually have bilateral arrangements when it comes to working abroad. So now we've reported one in Canada, we've had in Saudi Arabia. Are any of that in the UK that makes it easier or facilitates Filipinos who would want to work there? Is that under your jurisdiction?
It's not under our jurisdiction, but we know that obviously the Philippines has been a major supplier of labour, of skilled labour. I mean, the national health system, in
Correct.
fact, the first nurse to administer a COVID injection was a
Exactly,
Filipina, and was recognised for that. So they've seen a lot of support from Philippine nurses, and that's obviously a key sector. The rough estimate, because obviously we have close ties with the Philippine embassy in London, we work with them. It's now Ambassador Locsin. There are about over 250,000 Filipinos living in the UK.
Most in Europe, I mean, continent. and
I think
the
UK is high, Italy is very high as well.
Okay.
Of course, a lot of them now have British citizenship or dual citizenship. So I think there's always going to be very attractive. I think, of course, there are always going to be some challenges. Migration, immigration is a key issue across many countries. But the UK definitely recognises the skills of Filipinos, particularly, as we said, the healthcare sector, but there's been in other sectors. And I think that's going to just strengthen the ties. As I said, I think the ties now between the two countries are one of the highest. Last year, we revived the Great British Festival, which was in February last year. March, I beg your pardon, March. It was the summer of this year. And now we're looking, actually going to probably be doing it next in 2024 in October, close to the Philippine-British Friendship Day, which I hope I'm right. It's the
Somewhere in Feb.
It's the 20th of October, I'm sure.
The 2024 calendar is looking very busy already. It's
We're starting.
started, yeah.
I'm curious about one more thing, if you allow me. Has Brexit changed the relationship between the Philippines and the UK?
Not at all, actually. So I said, if you look at the trading side, what they did was they rolled over. So in fact, Philippine companies could still trade under GSP Plus, which is the EU. That's now been replaced by our own, the DCTS. No, it isn't. I think it's continued to grow, but we have a key role here. One is to try and also to promote opportunities in the UK, and obviously with this new trading scheme, and at the same time promote to UK companies the benefits of doing business in the Philippines.
All right. Well, a lot of things to be looking forward to, and please do invite us to your next. Is there going to be another food festival situation, or is that a yearly event? Or?
That's part of the Great British Festival. So put it down in October 2024.
Oh, October? No.
Or marking
Don't
it
worry,
on our calendar.
it'll be there.
It's
It'll be
10
there.
months from now.
And we'll invite you.
All right. Thank you so much for those updates on the British-Philippine relations. That was, of course, Christopher Nelson, Executive Director and Trustee over at the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. Thank you, Chris.
Well, up next, a House lawmaker has recently filed a bill that seeks to regulate artificial intelligence, or AI. IB Pop's AI consultant, Doc Ligot, will share with us his thoughts on this when we return. So keep it here on One News.
And you're back watching the big story here on One News.
Now, automation and artificial intelligence has started making its way into our lives and workplaces. To help ease concerns over its impact on jobs, one lawmaker has filed a bill seeking to regulate AI. Quezon City Representative Arjo Atayde filed House Bill number 9448, a measure seeking to regulate the use of artificial intelligence and automation systems in the labor industry. Atayde called for a clear framework on the use of AI and government policies on adopting new technologies without risking job losses. Now, artificial intelligence and automation are being used increasingly in different industries, prompting fears of displacement. Now, under the bill, employers and recruiters are banned from using AI as their primary basis for hiring and terminating employees. It also bans the use of AI to replace workers unless alternative work opportunities are made available. Now, on the other hand, the bill also promotes labor augmentation through AI given its benefits on productivity and cost optimization.
And here to help us parse through this issue, we have Doc Ligot, AI and technology consultant for IVBAP. So this is, of course, the IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines. Good evening, and
Good evening.
needless to say, you are pro-AI.
I have to be.
You have to be, that's your job. There's no way to go back, diba? This is there, this has been the buzzword of 2023. We've seen how it has helped in terms of productivity, but nevertheless, there's a lot of fears, especially with generative AI, when they start to think like humans, when they're taking skills that we don't even have ourselves. Give us an idea of what's going on in this space. Is there a real threat to humans, or is this all it's just gonna help us? It's all positive.
Yeah, great question. Very popular one. I think we need to determine first when we say jobs, what kind of jobs? Like, for example, I keep saying Excel didn't kill accounting, but the internet definitely killed the encyclopedia salesman.
Right.
So there are two types of jobs, one that can be replaced and one that can be augmented. And maybe most jobs, I think the World Economic Forum estimated about 23% of jobs will change, not necessarily lost. Like, let's take what we're doing now. A couple of years back, we would be doing this on TV. For the most part, it still is, but I'm sure most of our viewers are watching this from the internet,
Correct.
from social media. So the job did not disappear. Your jobs are relatively secure,
Well,
but it changed.
there are
Hopefully,
AI
at this
newscasters,
But I get what he's trying to say, parang mag-evolve.
Yes.
But of course, there's an argument that AI, if regulated properly, can benefit us. But the real question is, who stands, diba? Who gains more, workers or businesses?
Well, okay, if we step back a bit, AI was more or less a niche technology, maybe 10 years back. And then now what's changed a lot is generative AI.
Yeah.
And the main thing that has changed is the access of it.
Yeah.
Before, you needed to be some sort of a mathematician, a doctor, a programmer to use AI. Now anyone can use it. So that carries pros and cons. Number one, the access means anyone can benefit from it. But then I think an emerging area of concern is the ethics of it. It's probably what is underpinning Congressman Atayde's bill. How can it be misused? And then going back to the jobs question, obviously I work closely with the IT BPM Association, the BPO sector. It's growing very vibrantly. I think we're going to end the year with 1.7 million jobs. The target is about 2 million by 2025, still on track. So in terms of actual data, we're not seeing AI affect job growth.
Just yet.
Yeah, but we need to look ahead. Like, what does this mean for the BPO sector and for other sectors? Again, it's back to Excel didn't kill accounting, but some jobs did disappear. So we need to now be very careful about which jobs will be augmented.
Yeah, because there's certain industries, and like what you said, like jobs that could be at risk. And, the fear is very understandable. Let's say, like you mentioned, BPOs, call centers, cashiers, ano pa ba?
Factory workers.
Correct. Designers, So what do you tell these people that are in these industries so that they can adapt? Because I think that's the only way to be able to ride this wave.
Yeah, I think one thing that's taken people by surprise, we were all expecting AI to go after the physical jobs, like factory workers, laborers. But for some reason, it's gone after the white-collar stuff.
Yeah.
And jobs that previously we were comfortable, only humans could do, creative work. But even creativity, the creatives raised their eyebrow when I mentioned this. You have to split it between productivity, consistency, and originality. I think the originality part, humans still need to be there.
Right.
But doing things consistently and productively, that can only be good for everyone. 10x, 100x your output, that can be only good for pretty much anyone in the creative industry, agencies. call centers and BPOs, I think there are some tasks that can be automated, but automating tasks doesn't mean removing jobs. Because jobs are more than just collections of tasks. There's a lot of relationship management involved, even in a typical voice, transaction.
Because recently I've seen in, let's say, fast food chains, no? Instead of before having 10 cashiers in front, now you have this robot where you can, encode your orders and get the slip and go to one cashier and, process everything.
Yeah, let's use the fast food as a perfect example. So, yeah, there's a growing trend now. You have these big monitors where you put in your
Right,
order.
put your orders.
Of course, the data will say it better, but I can only guess that the number of orders they fill is probably much larger now than with the 20 cashiers and people taking your orders manually. But you had to move people from the cashier job to somewhere else. I think that's also another question for people. Are you in a job that could be automated out? That doesn't mean you go jobless. You need to move into a more, I would say,
AI can't cook. No?
yeah, well, not yet, but I've seen some attempts. Yeah, and then at the same time, it's also a company decision. Are you after efficiency? Are you after volume? The automation question is very different between those two questions. And the Philippines is still the #2 destination for offshored work. And based on our last statistics,
That could grow.
yeah, it's still growing. I mean, what I heard
for
is
you.
of the total number of offshoreable jobs, like jobs that could be sent to
Yeah.
us, only about 27%
Pa lang.
has
Oh,
been sent.
okay,
And that
okay.
includes India.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
It's
a
interesting.
lot of
Yeah,
opportunity
yeah.
for us to
Okay.
pick that up.
Well, back to the regulation issue, right? First of all, should there be regulation? And I mean, with AI and emerging technology, how can anyone really say what is there to regulate? And also, is the government responsible for regulating AI or the private sector? Who has the jurisdiction over AI?
Yeah, I'd rather take the question to safety. Like, for
Okay.
example, I like using automobiles as an analogy.
Yeah.
You can be an automobile mechanic, you can fix the car, doesn't mean you can drive the car. And you can be a good driver, doesn't mean you can change spark plugs. But we license drivers,
Okay.
not mechanics necessarily. And the reason for that is if you're a drunk driver, you can actually kill someone. So you need to be regulated as a driver. Vehicles need to be registered. So in the same manner, AI is potentially entering that era where everyone can be a driver of AI, but then you can use AI to hurt people. So the question do we need regulation? Yes.
Okay.
What kind of regulation? I think that's something worth discussing
Yeah,
with the
I
lawmakers.
think the lawmaker is trying to regulate the jobs that would be lost by AI.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think,
How do you do that?
yeah, back to the original question, we need to determine which jobs. And secondly, there's a wide area of discussion. Is it how the employers treat the workers? Is it the kinds of rights workers have? Like very recently, freelancers just got a bill giving them the same rights as employees.
Right.
For the longest time, they didn't have
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
So in the same manner, we need to also look at
Okay.
that angle when you want to regulate jobs and AI.
I have another issue here, for the pay. What happens when you integrate AI? Does that impact a person's pay? Because theoretically, you're going to be higher skilled, or the company is going to have fewer employees because they're going to be needing fewer employees, but at a higher pay. Is
Yeah.
that the direction that's
So
going to happen in the sector?
Let's zoom into the far future. You might have heard of a term called universal basic income. That's something being pushed by some of the AI visionaries. And the idea there is, in the far future, most jobs are being done by machines. Humans need some sort of a basic income to continue living. But then that means you have more time on your hands to do other things
Correct.
that machines are not
Yes.
doing. Now, the transition to that is the bigger question. Like, which jobs go first? What kind of automation is happening before others? And I think there's a lot of opportunity that is, I think more opportunity than risk. As I said, we're not offshoring more than 27% of jobs. So while we automate the jobs that we already have, that gives us room to take in more work, more product. Like the BPO industry grew by 8% in 2023. That's much higher than the national economic growth.
yeah.
So we're an indispensable part of the economy. And for as long as that is happening, the BPO sector will be the forefront, in adopting AI and looking at automation.
Do you think we're adapting fast enough to AI here in the Philippines?
My personal opinion is we have a lot to improve. Biggest area of concern is skills. So every time I have a discussion on jobs that could be sent to the Philippines, it's never a question of demand. It's just that we can't provide enough warm bodies. So upskilling is a priority. We also need to look at the education sector. Too long for the show to discuss. And it's also about upgrading skills.
Yeah.
Some of the skills, frankly, that we're teaching our children are outdated. So we need, children to start moving to digital skills, and even occupations need to be updated as well.
But compare us to other countries, because we're digital natives here in the Philippines, diba? We use a lot of Facebook, etc., GCash, and all of these things that some other countries, they're not even as let's say, digital savvy as we are. Do we have some level of advantage?
I think the basis
In
for
AI specifically?
there were at least 2 surveys. One was by Electronic Hub in the middle of April, where we're apparently number 1 in the world in terms of interest in AI. So
Aba.
per capita.
Oh.
And I hope it's not just students searching for a way to
Right.
cheat their
I
essays.
hope
no?
it's in a good way.
Yeah, but then more
Like the
recent.
intention would have been.
Yeah, but more
Okay.
recently there was another survey where, in terms of actual use, we're number 4. But number one is US,
high,
number
yeah.
2 is India, number 3 is Indonesia. So these are countries with far larger populations.
Interesting.
So we're not doing too badly.
Okay.
But I think that's for me an opportunity to double down. So all I want to say is, despite the infrastructure challenge, internet connectivity and all that,
And archipelago.
yeah, and
situation.
archipelagic country, we're still doing pretty well. So imagine if we're able to pave that digital highway for everyone, especially areas that are still uncovered by internet. Imagine.
Realistically, is it still expensive to integrate it now? Or companies can afford it now?
Well, in terms of AI,
Yeah,
the
commodity na ba?
barrier to entry is very low.
Yeah,
You pretty
okay.
much just need an internet connection to start using ChatGPT, right? I think the bigger challenge would be, is your data secure? So cybersecurity.
Pay
Second,
for that.
do you have the requisite skills? I mean, even if you had a chatbot, do you know how to prompt it properly? And then from a process standpoint, you can't just throw AI into any company and
Yes,
suddenly magically
yeah.
it will automate. You have to have a look at your processes, which parts need to go, which parts need to be created. It's an interesting journey if people started to look at it.
But achievable.
Absolutely
Definitely
achievable.
There you have it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And of course, for all of your insights, that was IBPAP's AI and tech consultant, Doc Ligot.
Up next, prices of some commodities may not be going up anymore, but in turn, some items are getting smaller. Relate ba kayo dyan? It's called Shrinkflation. And we'll be discussing that right after the break. Keep it here on One News.
story here on What News.
Kamusta naman, ladies? Ladies. Ang inyong shopping for the new year.
Walang shopping.
Satisfied ba kayo sa
Food, you
mga
mean?
nabiling products ninyo? Food and
Ay,
yeah.
mahal ng bilihin, right?
Well, the reason why I ask you that, kasi minsan, di ba, you'll notice, I don't know if you guys buy pandesal. Before it was like this, right now ganito na siya.
Yeah.
So may tawag doon.
Or minsan yung kunyari dati kang order, you're usual in that in that place. And then suddenly the portions are smaller.
Yun nga eh.
Or the
But the prices
kamatis
don't
from
change.
red, green na siya.
Or dati binibili mo siya ng 3 pieces, ngayon 2 peraso na siya. So, well, some Filipinos who did their holiday shopping were left disappointed by the apparent smaller sizes of products they bought from or for medianoche. For manufacturers, this practice is called shrinkflation.
I know.
Yun. So, shrinkflation allows manufacturers to shrink or reduce the size or quantity of their products while prices remain the same. Consumers notice that sizes of their usual bread have become smaller while contents of the usual sardine cans they buy have decreased. The Philippine Amalgamated Supermarkets Association says shrinkflation is nothing new, but more manufacturers have been doing it since the pandemic.
They're saying that pandaraya. No, it's not. It's a choice. Like yung size ng sardinas, they're both available on the shelf. So, hindi naman tinanggal yung isa eh. Kung tinanggal yung isa, sabihin mo, nanlilin lang. Both are available and on the label, nakalagay naman yung weight.
To make it clear, DTI explains itong practice ng shrinkflation is not against their policy. No? This is more of a business decision of marketing strategy, yun ang sabi nila. Pero, of course, we have to take note, may pwede pa ring violation na binabantayan tulad ng price manipulation, we also have profiteering, which means sobra-sobra yung presyo ng produkto versus doon sa true value ng item na binibili mo. So, yun yung dapat natin tinitignan. So, yung others, kasi makikita mo yung mga ibang mamimili, you don't have a choice. No? So, just accept na lang kung ito
Would
na.
you rather have the prices go up by
Oo.
6%
Exactly.
inflation?
Correct.
Or would you rather eat
Correct.
less? It's a tough ask.
It's really a test for us, especially yung mga maghahanda ngayon ng medianoche, on how to be able to make things still look and feel and taste as
the same.
As festive as before.
Yeah, right.
Kasi 'di ba, ngayon, I don't know if you guys do that, yung practice ng culture natin to collect 12 round fruits, 'di ba? And others would collect before, siguro would collect yung 12, siguro 2 of each. Ngayon, siguro ko-collect na lang nila 1 of each na lang because of the price and the shrinkflation na pinag-uusapan nila.
Right, but a lot of
Now,
people.
groceries getting less and less, parang what you need na lang, diba, for the week. And then, next
Ganun
na
na
lang.
Well, we're down to the last 3 days before New Year's Eve. And I'm sure madami nang excited magpaputok. But this is a gentle reminder to be extra careful as firework-related injuries continue to increase. Now, with the health department even recording the first case of Watusi or Watusi ingestion this holiday season. JC Cosico joins us from Quezon City General Hospital to give us the details. JC.
Injuries in the country have climbed to 88 after the health department recorded 13 new cases overnight. None of these have been rushed here at the Quezon City General Hospital, but they are ready to accommodate such cases. Nakahilera na ang mga panlinis ng sugat at aparatong gagamitin sa mga mapuputukan na mangangailangan ng operasyon o putol sa emergency room. We also noticed some trays of eggs placed on a table. The hospital says this is for those who accidentally ingested firecrackers. Yesterday, the health department recorded its first case of fireworks ingestion this holiday season. The patient is a 4-year-old male child from Calabarzon. He swallowed Watusi, which is although small, is poisonous and can be lethal if ingested.
Akala nila parang candy and then toxic siya. It's a very toxic poison to the liver and people can die, pwedeng mamatay.
But what exactly can be done as first aid to victims of fireworks ingestion? Well, the DOH says do not force the victim to vomit. Instead, make them drink 6 to 8 raw white eggs for children and 8 to 12 eggs for adults.
Yung egg white na sinasabi, ginagamit yan bilang isang antidote o pangontra sa lason. Yung lason na to, pag nabalutan siya nung ating egg white, mas madali siyang tanggalin.
After that, rush the victim to the nearest hospital where they will undergo a gentle suction to remove the chemicals from the body. Apart from ingestion, the DOH also warns the public against the use of certain fireworks, namely Boga, 5-Star, Quitis, Piccolo, Plapla, Whistle Bomb, and Lucy's. They note these fireworks are the top causes of fireworks injuries. Another thing the agency is monitoring is the possible increase in tetanus cases. Now, hospitals have been ordered to ready their equipment 24/7, and the government is also on standby for possible casualties amid possible fire incidents as we welcome 2024. Back to you.
Thank you, JC, and happy holidays.
And that's the show tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you and good night.